There we go.
We are now recording. Yes.
Excellent. Thanks everybody for joining us. I appreciate y'all hopping on this evening and for once again meeting virtually. So tonight we've got kind of really three main items to go through. First and foremost, we have 5 new task force members that this is their first task force meeting. Actually, I guess one of them it's their second, but we wanted to give a few minutes to let them all introduce themselves and welcome them aboard. And then we've got finalizing our vision and our values. And then the second half of the meeting, I'm going to give a presentation about anti-gentrification, anti-displacement tools that the city currently has, various policies that we've got at our disposal. Really more than anything, just kind of as an education piece, but then to answer some questions and, it's really more for y'all to mull over as you think about how these might apply to your community. And then we'll wrap up with a little bit of next steps about some upcoming meetings that we've got. We've got all of our last round of workshop meetings scheduled. So I just wanted to go through that, but I'll save that to the end. So with that, yeah, let's welcome in our new task force members. I think I saw almost everybody on the call. I'm trying to go through names. It looks like we've got most everybody on right now. So I guess let's start with Augustine and then we can kind of just go down the list. And if you just want to introduce yourself, turn on your camera if you can, and tell us a little bit about yourself and your neighborhood association, and that way we kind of get to know each other.
Hello, everybody. My name is Augustine Torres. I am from the Dells neighborhood. Been in Oak Cliff pretty much all my life. Happy to be here, see what I can do to contribute.
Welcome.
Excellent. Caitlin, are you on?
I'm here. Hey, I am the representative from the Sunset Hill Association of Neighbors. We've been a neighborhood association for quite a while, I think. I'm relatively new to Dallas, been in Oak Cliff for 5 years, been in Sunset Hill for 2. So yeah.
I don't know if Kendra's on. I see a phone number or two, so I don't know who they are. But Kendra, if you are on, go ahead and introduce yourself. All right, hearing nothing, I'll assume she's not. But if
and Daniel, the phone number is just Liz's phone, so she can have a speaking device, in addition to her regular login.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Kendra's representing the South Edgefield Neighborhood Association, which is an area kind of south of Clarendon, north of the DART tracks, near the Tyler Vernon DART station, and they're a newly created neighborhood association. I guess, what's that? Okay. I guess up next we got Gerardo, if you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your neighborhood association and I guess anything else.
And Gerardo, your mic is off right now.
Okay, well, I see that he's on the call, but we can
wait
come
a second.
back.
He's just come in another avenue.
Okay.
Gerardo, are you there now? Oh, your mic is still turned off. Now you should be able to talk. Unfortunately, it's connecting to audio now.
Perfect. Sorry about that. I had to.
No worries.
There you are.
Hello, everybody. I'm Gerardo. I'm representing the East Hampton Neighborhood Association, newly formed. So just here to get more information and just glad to be a part of this process and this task force.
Excellent. Thanks for joining. And last but not least, Liz, I know you're having some audio issues, but if you're on, go ahead and introduce yourself as well. We have a lot of feedback, so I guess everybody else mute yourself if you're not speaking.
That's actually Liz's own
It's because of
feedback.
me. It's because of me. Hold on. Audio mute. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Liz. I'm having microphone issues also. Okay, I am representing Norris Cliff Neighborhood Association. We were a pretty big association for several years, but it's kind of gone dormant over the last 5 to 6 years. So we are just starting back up again with a good amount of people that are interested. So I'm stoked to be able to represent them on the task force.
Excellent. Well, thanks for being here, and thanks everybody for introducing yourselves and joining the meeting.
Hey, Daniel, can I also ask, I'm just
Sure.
trying to sort of keep the attendance so we can know which neighborhoods have been at the table at different meetings and all that. So there's someone on the call, and welcome to you, whoever you are, and your name, it looks like 236051. If you could just tell us who that is, then we would know that that neighborhood is represented. I just don't know who 236051 is. But you are on the call.
And they might not know that they're labeled as such either.
You may not know that that's the only label. So unfortunately, well, I'll try to figure out maybe who is absent, and maybe by the process of elimination, we may figure out who is 236051. Okay, thank you.
Sure. All right. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you to the new members for joining. We're very excited to have you as a member of the task force and have you with us as we continue to move forward through this process. If you have, I know I sent all of you many of you have gone through the orientation, and Liz, we need to work together to find a time, just kind of go through the same orientation that the other members have gone through, and we can do that here soon. But if you've got specific questions, always feel free to reach out to myself, to Mike, or to Monique Ward, and I'll put my contact info in the chat here later. But I think all of you have my email address. So our next task is to nail down our visioning and our values for our the vision statement, and then our values for the plan. So for those who this is your first meeting, and I think I presented this to everybody at the orientation, but if this is new to anybody, we're kind of looking at the structure of the plan. You know, most importantly, we've got core values that we as a group, that you as a community, you know, want to define, which then obviously feed into the vision. The vision is going to be kind of just a broad vision statement of, you know, West Oak Cliff is, and then from there. And then the framework really of the plan, which with recommendations in it, would be divided into 4 main categories, because that's kind of what's bubbled up from what we've heard from the community so far. And so that's issues related to land use and development, issues related to inclusive community development, quality of life, parks and open space recommendations, and then transportation and infrastructure recommendations. So really tonight, our task is to finalize nailing down our values and our vision. And so there's not really the best way to do this. I kind of been spending the day thinking about how we were going to do this, and there is not a perfect solution. If we were in person, it'd be easy to just have people raise their hands. Here were the values that everybody noted in the homework that, you know, people had sent me between, I guess, a couple weeks back and this afternoon. So the values that people have suggested so far are inclusive, safe or safety. I kind of thought those are the same things. Diversity, green, natural, sustainable, ethical, enriching, equity, respect, opportunity, efficient, fulfilling, human scaled or human focused, well-connected, walkable, welcoming, affordability, and then community building, but I guess we could also think like community oriented. You know, if I'll go ahead and do it where I can like add in a few more. If there's, you know, if there's any values that people on here think are blatantly missing for us to debate, feel free to chime in. And I also kind of wanted to add that I think it's probably worth noting too, that some of these we may be able to kind of blend together because, you know, equity and inclusivity, obviously there's a lot of overlap there, or like walkable and well-connected kind of have the same core purpose. And so we may think about kind of merging two of them together if there's a reason to do that. So are there any other values that people think are not on here that you'd like to have us vote on? Because what we're ultimately going to do here in just a second is I'm going to let all of you spend a minute or two and just like write down or have in your head your top 3 values that are on here. And then we'll essentially just kind of go through each of them and vote. And then that way we kind of see which ones bubble up to the top. Because the idea is to really choose somewhere between 3 or 5 core values that are, you know, defining this plan, since we don't want to have a laundry list.
Daniel, I know for me, something that comes to me at mind, and I can't come up with a good one-word adjective for it, would be sort of like respecting and honoring the rich history that's already here. Almost like, I don't know.
You kind of
sort of.
Okay, so. And some of these things that, you know, we also might be capturing in the vision statement, not that they're not important. It's just, you know, let's think what would be a good way to define that. Is it more history or culture that you, or both?
Or both.
Right?
History, culture, legacy.
Yeah,
No.
definitely.
Right.
Yeah, Oak Cliff has much more history than the rest of Dallas.
Why don't we just kind of say historic and cultural legacy, and if we need to wordsmith it a little, we can obviously do that.
Honestly, that sounds pretty good to me.
Daniel, I had one.
Sure. Yeah.
So values that I want in the neighborhood, you know, set aside. So the values that for the plan itself, I was thinking of things more related to the process. So the single word I thought of was dynamic. Not in a loose way, but specifically something poignantly responding to the physical forces, you know, in the area.
Okay. Does anybody else have any ideas, any values they'd want to have added to the list?
I don't know if it's a value per se, but I guess like family friendly. I don't know. I guess the way to put it is that, you know, the West Oak Cliff always felt like, you know, if you're, I guess, being in this position before, if you were moving to Dallas or immigrating to Dallas, and you said, well, what are the best spots to kind of move to if you're starting out as a family? And one of the first places that comes to mind would be West Oak Cliff. I don't know quite how you would word that in terms of a value, but it's just
Welcoming.
that. Yeah, it's very welcoming. Yeah.
Okay, we do have welcoming. If
Family friendly is meaningful, I think.
yeah, no, I mean, I think it's a good one too. So. All right. Well, I think that this is like good, like 18 or something. If nobody else has any additional ones, as it's a lot to think through. So maybe everybody take like a minute or two to kind of think through which ones are, maybe what should we do our top 3 and then take the top 5 that bubble up, and maybe merge a couple if we like, welcoming and family friendly, you could think of if they were like 6 and 5 in terms of ranking, we could put them together. So would people, do you think we should do the top 3 and then choose the top 5, or should people rank their top 5? I'm just trying to make it easy on everybody.
It's not going to be easy.
I know. Let's do top 5 because there's a lot on here, and I want to capture as much input as possible. So why don't everybody take like 2 minutes to try to think what your top 5 would be. They don't have to be in order. They could just be your top 5. And then what we're going to do is I'll go through each one of them and we'll just take a vote and kind of see how many people raise their hand for each one. Hey, Monique, if you get a chance, do you mind emailing Commissioner McGregor? Oh, never mind. He's trying to get me to text it to him. He's struggling to get on. And so I was going to send him the info, but he wanted it in text. So I'll just find the meeting invite and text it to him.
All right. I can also help you keep an eye on the chat here and the participants.
All right. Has everybody successfully come up with their top 5? All right. Well, not hearing any no's. We'll go ahead and move forward. So what I'm going to do, and
hey, Daniel.
yes.
Hi there. So when I was coming up with my 5, I did some compiling. For example, equitable and affordable, ethical and respectful, inclusive and safe. So do I get to vote for each of them?
Man, that's a tough one. I know.
Or do we try to see if there's anybody else that like collapsed any that we could, maybe I could just put those out there as offerings.
Well, I mean, and I like that idea. I mean, I kind of see what's going to happen is it probably does make sense to merge a couple of these together.
Oh, yeah.
Do we have that conversation first, maybe?
Maybe.
Or no, I don't know. I just throw it out there.
I was thinking, Yoli, maybe a DEI thing, diversity, equity, and inclusivity is often together in other organizations.
That's a good idea.
They have slightly different meanings, but they do go together.
Yeah, they complement each other.
They complement. That's right.
Can we do
So
that?
that could be an idea.
So we're saying diversity, equity, and inclusivity is one. So let me go ahead and strike through those just so that we're not getting things confused.
Yeah, but equity parents diversity and inclusivity. I mean, and when we're talking about
that's right,
a plan, we're dealing with a lot of land area, not just a single organization.
Yeah, and I mean,
so as long, I mean, I would, I could even say equity for record keeping, equity
includes all those. It includes those others.
Yeah.
as well
equity-
as the disparities piece
right,
that's
'cause-
not really reflected.
Yeah, diversity is a word that means something, but it implies a direction within the range that it can have. Equity is really equitable, is what we want. We want it to be equitable,
Yeah.
Right. True.
and we want it to be financially equitable as well as culturally equitable. I like that.
No,
word.
I completely agree. Almost like that equity.
Colon,
Equity.
equity, colon.
Mhm.
All right. Equitable, and then we can say diverse and inclusive.
And those are good caveats to the thrust of equitability we're talking about. I also thought affordability, opportunity, ethics, and well connection were under equitable as well.
I like that.
Because if you think about it, we talk about walkability and we talk about the way in which people get to services and all this, then there's a certain thing where if you're walking past 10 houses that are 50 feet wide versus 10 houses that are 150 feet wide, then that changes how walkable that area is.
Say that again, grouping walkable with or
Affordability.
under equitable.
I think well connected. Walkable and well connected, I guess, are kind of two different things. They're two different scales. Walkable is probably, to me, under well connected. Well connected is under equitable.
Mhm.
Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out how to take notes on all this.
Well, I'm just making
you-
a vote to scratch
Yeah.
those out because we have them covered.
Okay, and so you're basically saying that under equitable is diverse and inclusive, but then add in walkable and well-connected?
Yeah,
I also heard affordable.
Yeah, I've got a lot of words under equitable
And
that are important to understanding the distinctions of it, but it gets a little wordy if you just start adding every single one underneath.
I know.
Parent words.
Right.
But just so everyone knows, at least if I spoke too fast, I put under equitable, affordable, opportunity, ethical, inclusive, well-connected, and then under well-connected, I put walkable. That was how I saw the little word tree there under that word.
So I guess what I'm thinking is what we're noticing is that some of these values have sub-values, right? And so just like I think that, I mean, I could say how well-connected, you could think about how safety and well-connected or safety and walkability might have overlap, or sustainability and efficiency might have overlap. You know, there's a lot of, so I'm just wondering if, I'm trying to make it easy on us, but at the same time, I'd still be interested to kind of see where people's come up to the top, and then we figure out a way how to merge them all together. Because if what we're seeing is that nobody votes for a couple, then we can go ahead and just strike them from the list, and then maybe it's easier to word massage them down, or group them. But I know this is not an easy exercise. I don't have any precedent for doing this, so.
I really like your idea, Daniel, to go ahead and go with it. Maybe we make it a little less academic than what we brought up, but let's start somewhere. And then if we can combine these, we can talk about them in more detail.
All right, so I guess if we're going to do that, and I do like including equitable as diverse and inclusive, but if people think that those should be separated back out, speak now. If not, why don't we go ahead and kind of have it the way we have it and just get a vote, like a vote tally on each one, and then we can kind of strike the ones that maybe don't make sense, and then combine the ones that do make sense to combine. I think the easiest thing to do will be to, if you go up, does everybody have the ability to like raise their hand on the participants list? I don't, so it might not be a function, but.
Yeah,
Usually
mine is
it's
in
at the-
reactions.
Yeah, it's usually in the bottoms of the screen. It's called reactions. And if you open up that little menu, there's a sort of a various, thumbs up or
Right, say it.
hearts or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have that, but I'm also sharing my screen, so that's probably why. I can't
That could
react
be
to
why,
my own
yeah.
screen.
But we can see your share screen and still see the reactions menu on our side. Yeah.
So, okay, well, why don't we take a stab at doing that? I see Caitlin has her hand up, but I'm assuming that's a vote. I don't know. Why don't we start with safe and safety?
Well, no,
And
just real quick, I think
sure.
you should do the thumbs up instead of the raise hand, because if you put the raise hand, it'll stay up if the person
Oh,
doesn't put
good
it down.
point. Good point. Okay,
Yeah, that's
thumbs
a very
up.
good point, Rebecca. Thank you. It will. Yeah, so the thumbs up is better for voting. Yeah.
All right, so first one, safety. Oh, go ahead, sorry.
Thumbs up. I see the right hand, but I don't see the thumbs up.
Under reactions, when you click on it,
I don't.
Caitlin, do you see
have a reaction?
you see the reactions menu at the bottom?
No.
In
I'm
some
older.
in some performers there, it's at the top also. I don't know why that is, but
it's a little smiley face with a plus button.
Or look for an option that says more if you're not seeing all the icons on your screen.
yeah, more can have it there. Yeah, it'll pull down the options menus. It may be what they call the hamburger, which is the three lateral lines close together.
We can also do it so that anybody who can't give a reaction, if you just want to say and me,
Yeah.
you know, like come off mute and say and
Yeah,
me.
sure, sure.
Again, wish we were in person so we could all raise our hands in person. Okay, so why don't we just start with safe and safety and either thumbs up or say and me, and we'll go from there.
And Daniel, are you saying you vote for it if it's in your top 5?
If it's in your top 5, give a thumbs up.
You give it a thumbs up. Okay, very good. So we have Barbie and Augustine.
And keep okay, so but I forget that it doesn't stay up very long. So we had
It sure doesn't. So
I
should we
started to
should we
say that.
okay, well
They
then
have
maybe
the
we
raise
do need to
hands.
do the raise
Yeah,
hands
that's
thing.
right.
Just
And
remember to
everybody-
take your hand down.
Take your hand down so you're otherwise you'll lose one of your votes. So there you go.
Oh.
Okay.
Let
we're
us
back
know
to
when you're
hands.
finished. Let us know when
Okay,
you're finished
good.
counting so we can take our hands down.
Will do. So right now I see 3. I see Yolanda. Okay, 4. Yolanda, Caitlin, Elena, Augustine, Barbara.
Oh, where'd Liz go? Oh, there's Liz.
I think this is essential. The neighborhoods have to be safe.
I can't raise my hand on how I've got my thing set up, but this is one of my top 5 also.
Okay, so Liz, that's 6.
Liz, yeah.
Okay, that's 6 votes. All right. I think that's everybody, unless somebody wants to speak up.
Well, I just want to make you understand that I may agree with that safety is what, but I'm not voting. So
I'm not voting either.
That's really all of you that we're
Yeah,
wanting to know what you think.
That's right.
So
Well, and this can come into discussion later about, well, what is safety? Is safety something to strive for, or do some of these other things create safety?
yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, next one.
All right, next one. And Augustine, I see you still here have your hand up, so just be sure to take
sorry.
it down before you, no worries. Equitable, so diverse and inclusive.
Liz here, that's one for me too.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
And that's not including Liz, so that would be 11.
Oh, 11.
How many times can we vote?
5 times.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
All right,
How do I raise my hand on this program? I tried to figure this out on my own. Now I have to just ask.
Okay. Okay, so I'll make you 12.
All right. I'll just say that then.
Excellent. No, that's good. Okay, so okay, everybody take your hands down again so we can do our next vote. Paul, I see you still have your hand up.
There you go.
Okay, green, natural, sustainable, and we can figure out exactly how we worded that in a second.
Liz, again, this is another one for me.
Okay,
Nick as well.
looks like, okay, so it's like 5 total. All right, moving on to the next one. So take your hands down. Elena and Barb. Elena, you still have your hand up. Okay, ethical. Yeah, I just see one hand. Anybody else for ethical? 2 hands. Okay. Enriching. All right, I just see one hand. All right, respect. Not seeing any hands.
I think that's included in equitable.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense
Yeah. Opportunity. I know Rebecca put one in the chat for opportunity. So, okay, she would raise her hand. Okay. So I see 3 hands. Anybody else? 4 hands.
Enrique also for opportunity.
Okay, 5.
There you go.
Point of clarification, is voting open only to task force members?
That's true. Yeah, Commissioner McGregor. I guess technically you're not technically a task force member. I mean, if it's excused the voting, then we'll.
All right, take it off. I didn't catch the instructions in the beginning because I joined in late.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
Your votes are felt sentimentally.
Yeah. Okay, so we got 4 votes there. If y'all want to take your hands down. All right, efficient. Commissioner McGregor, you still have your hand up, but no votes for efficient. Okay, next one is fulfilling. Okay, no votes for fulfilling. Okay, next one is human scaled and human focused.
Me.
Is 1. Anybody else? All right. Next one is well connected. All right, I see 3. Anybody else? Next one is, I'll wait for Greg to take his hand down. Next one is walkable.
And I took it down, Daniel, but popped it back up real quick.
Okay, so that's 3. Anybody else for walkable? I don't see anybody else. Okay, that's actually 4. Okay. Next is welcoming. And Barbara, you still have your hand up, so
Oh, sorry.
no worries.
Oh,
Sorry, that was my Labrador.
He does not get a vote.
No, no, and he didn't sound very welcoming either, so. Right, next, so it looked like we had 3 for welcoming. Next is affordability or affordable. I mean, I think affordable might be the way to say it, but affordable.
Liz here. That's one of mine.
Okay, so that's 1, and then. So I got 6 right now for affordable.
6.
Okay, thanks everybody. Next up, what hands come down?
yep.
No, it's good. Next up, we got building community, and I know Liz that you had sent this to me. So were you thinking more like community oriented, or is there like a way that I'm just trying to think of how to like phrase it?
Well, isn't that inclusive?
I was thinking more along the lines of fostering communal like involvement and knowing each other and social activities, things of that nature.
I'll just add in, I know I listed that in something I sent you today, Daniel.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's more about the vision or if it's a value. I mean,
Yeah, and I think
is fostering community part of inclusivity?
Yeah, I think it
so,
is.
And so that it could fold into a vision. I mean, I had something similar.
yeah.
Put that out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of my ideas on the one vote for enriching had to do with community building as well. So, I mean, it'd be interesting to talk about these afterwards and see what we can combine.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. Okay, so let's just go ahead and vote on fostering community.
I vote for it.
Okay. 2 more votes. So I guess that's 3 total, sorry. All right, anybody else? All right, our last 3. Okay, so historic and cultural legacy. A lot of
Elena, do
hands.
you mean to have your hand up on that one? Elena?
Yeah, I got 8 on that one.
Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I see 7.
Okay.
Elena's was still up from the last.
Elena's was still up. Okay.
And then you got Liz's, or did Liz vote? I'm just making.
Liz, did you vote for that one?
No, I didn't. I'm out of votes.
All right. Dynamic.
Raising my hand.
So Nick, Barbara, and Yolanda.
Oh, sorry.
Is that a yes or no, Barbara?
No.
It was a no. Okay.
Oh, wait, no, is this history?
No, we already voted on history.
Yeah, well, that was the leftover history vote.
Yeah.
Sorry. Now we're on dynamic.
Sorry. Me too. I'm out of votes.
Okay, so it was just 1.
Yeah.
Just Nick. Okay. And then the last one, family friendly.
Why don't we combine family friendly and welcoming?
Well, I guess some of us ran out of votes.
Well, I did. Yeah, I did too, but
I
I
agree.
mean,
Okay.
because family friendly could also be fostering community.
well, let's combine them all.
And put them under dynamic.
Oh, boy.
So, okay,
so
well, this
hard.
is good. I mean, the good thing is we can kind of like begin to start crossing some out, right? So we know that like respect kind of fits in, efficient and fulfilling both kind of come off.
But inclusive. Respect and inclusive are,
Yeah, and so I put respect up here. And so yeah, so we may need to kind of think through that one. So it seems like,
So equitable is in the top, and then historic and cultural legacy. And then safety.
these are good.
And then safety tied with affordable.
Probably not.
That's
That
right.
was it.
This is all important.
so one opportunity I could see how like safety, and I guess the question on well-connected would be, are we talking about well-connected in terms of like being able to get places, or is it well-connected in terms of connected to your neighbors in terms of like relationships?
Oh,
Yeah,
and then that would be like more like fostering community then.
Yeah.
And they both got 3.
Well-connected to me is an achievement under several categories, not necessarily a vision itself.
That's a good
I
point.
took it
Nick. And as being somebody who voted for well-connected, it definitely was not related to something like efficient, which has destroyed some of our neighborhoods with mega roads, not well-connected by putting 6-lane thoroughfares through, but yeah, well-connected in the sense that if somebody who lives in the area wants to be able to get somewhere, they can, but that combined with a vote from Walkable would say something. If that vote was combined with efficient, it would say something else, you know?
Not the NBA draft.
Sure.
But to me, well-connected it means that the population is connected to each other. I'm not thinking about transportation when I look at well-connected. That's the human aspect. To
Yeah,
me.
and as an architect, I think about it. I thought about it as having a cultural legacy and welcoming kind of already handled that social aspect. So I thought of well-connected as purely a physical thing. Like
So I'm gonna start trying to like regroup these a little and do this on the fly. So just bear with me.
Well,
And Daniel-
and then do dynamic and human scaled kind of enriching. Do those kind of just come off also because they're low scoring?
Which one? Dynamic and
The one that only got 1 vote.
Yeah, again, as somebody who voted for enriching, these other things achieve enrichment. You know, there's some things in enrichment that maybe we don't have up here, but you can't have it all. So, you know, historic and cultural legacy, establishing that could be enriching and
Diverse.
well connected. Yes.
But I thought enriching and legacy go really well together. They're 2 different aspects, in my opinion. They're 2 different aspects of having a sustainable area.
Absolutely, I agree with that.
So enriching historic and cultural legacy?
yeah, I mean, I could see how that could combine.
That sounds nice.
Oak Cliff has more history than the rest of Dallas put together, so.
So I guess human scaled and human focused. I mean, I guess that to me, it kind of comes up in 2 different ways. You could kind of think about, well, you have buildings in a neighborhood that feels human scaled, which is like a very like design description of a space, but then it's also human focused, which to me, a human focused plan would be equitable. It would be fostering community. It would achieve those things.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's probably more what people are thinking about. So I feel like we can go ahead and strike that, knowing that it kind of gets lumped in under the other ones, unless people disagree.
Well, in all fairness, you just made it the principal umbrella word. So, I mean, that's a big vision, actually.
Maybe it goes in the vision statement.
Yeah, and I think the vision statement can capture some of these things that we don't capture here.
It's probably a goal then. You want,
Yeah.
such and such what we are to encourage so that it will be 1, 2, and 3, and one of those could be human focused.
And I just combined welcoming and family friendly, if people are okay with that. I mean, I think people kind of agree they're the same thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So then do we have a dynamic, enriching, historic and cultural legacy?
Right now, yeah, I'm trying to see what we have
do we
left.
strike out dynamic?
And so I guess, Nick, you were getting at dynamic in terms of a plan that is,
all of our words are results based. We don't have any words related to the actual process of the plan. So the question was, what do you want the vision of the plan to be? Not just what do you want the plan to create for the vision of the neighborhood? So I read the question differently.
Okay.
So that's where I find that you could call it research based, but the idea that dynamic has some flexibility as the life of the neighborhood goes on past the plan.
Okay. Are you okay if we strike that, or
No, it's okay.
Could we add it to opportunity? Because I do think opportunity is important. No, yes. Because that's what you're talking about. Flexibility to change and grow more opportunities. Yes, no?
Yeah, I'm just thinking about it. It's necessarily not my gal to land. I'm just thinking about it.
Okay.
I think it's a good association.
They went together in my head.
See, to me, I see things like the word dynamic could fit itself into the vision statement really well.
Okay.
I agree that I think opportunity is one I can see as a value, but then it also can find itself in the vision statement, and the values might find themselves in the vision statement regardless. Because like right now we've got the ones that now we've kind of merged them, so I don't know how many we're even at, honestly, in terms of voting.
I don't really care about voting as far as the word I thought of. I think, just to be clear, it'd probably be easier if there's any accord here on it, that it was probably more about that the plan is flexible and research based. That's probably more of the twofold approach.
Okay.
That dynamic word.
Everybody's freezing.
Yeah.
I was hoping that you would put them in a kind of a rank order, but I see the votes went away.
Well, I have the votes still listed over here, but I didn't. I apologize for doing that now.
Okay, no, it's okay. Is it okay if we could put them in a rank order?
Sure. Yeah. So first and foremost was definitely equitable.
Mm-hmm.
And then second was
7, historic and cultural legacy.
And that actually included enriching too. So.
Mm-hmm.
And then safety was next.
Yeah.
I think it's 6.
And
Safety and affordability.
Mm-hmm.
And I think on the word sustainable, whatever you do with it, you have to either pick the green natural part or pick the sustainable part, because the two words are at different scales, I think. So I would just get rid of the hyphen and pick one side or the other about whoever said that and what they meant.
Yeah, and I think that to me, it's like sustainable. Sustainable is a big capturing thing, right? Sustainability could focus on green development in terms of architecture, but it can also be a sustainable community, one that continues to feed back to itself, right? And support local businesses and all of that. Like all of that is captured in sustainability, but it's not captured in green.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't know if people want to have like a debate on that, but
probably not.
But if we struck that and just said sustainable,
Well,
so
then
then we're,
that's where you could basically, you could say you can't have a legacy without something sustainable. They're kind of tied in together. So I don't know, I don't know the angle.
Combine that with enriching history and cultural legacy.
Well, does sustainable always suggest replenishment? In other words, that it is designed to self-replenish, whether you're talking about a crop, a business venture that you want to get into, a way to build a building, that it has a way of preserving itself and
resilient. So it gets
there's
tied to it.
There's a resiliency aspect and a proliferation aspect.
and proliferation. Yeah, both. Yeah.
Whether you're talking about a cultural or ecological or whatever else.
well, and we can say we can make it sustainable and resilient, and then it just leave it at that. But I personally don't love lumping it in with historic and cultural legacy, because while I think that they're related, I think they're doing two separate things.
Yeah. It's not common. It's not what you think of right away. It's
right.
It's
sometimes it means affordable too. So it's, yeah.
But you just took out green and natural. I don't like that.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I think from a lot of the feedback we got at the beginning of this effort, there was a lot about the amount of trees and the old nature of our neighborhoods and what that means to a lot of us. And I think green, in the sense of trees, really, or natural,
the ecology,
yeah. I think that does. I mean, it means a lot to me. I can speak for myself. I can't speak for anybody else.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, it's important. It's just, well, I'm not going to be the one. In my opinion, it's not a vision. It's an element within a vision.
Well, and it would be covered underneath walkable too, really.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing.
Not necessarily.
Oh, absolutely.
You got to have trees if you want it to be walkable.
You have to have resting places basically every quarter mile, half mile if you want to create a walkable area.
Can we go back and look at that rank order, Daniel?
Sure, yeah.
So in green, that had 5.
So our next tier was like opportunity and walkable, both had 4.
Yeah, but green is definitely at 5, so it puts it up there.
So what I was thinking, could we do something? I'm trying to like merge, but keep a lot of these that people like together. Could we do like safe, well-connected, and walkable all as one thing? Because like safety, I think when I'm thinking of safety, and maybe this is just my thoughts and the way people were thinking, was there's like pedestrian and bike safety, which is important, but then there's also like just a safe neighborhood period in terms of like no crime. And so there's like 2 different types of safety, but we want to capture both.
It's really health.
What?
It's health.
Yeah. But then, well, that's what I was thinking. Well-connected is community well-connected, but also we can capture a lot in well-connected in terms of being connected to your neighbor, but also being able to get places, so it could just be safe and well-connected. But if we think well-connected captures walkable.
Can you combine natural and walkable?
Sure. Anybody have a problem with that?
I mean, because walkable also could imply safety, but what I heard people saying is that it has to be natural and green to be walkable.
I agree. That's okay. I just want nature or green or something in there somewhere for me to vote for.
Works.
Okay.
Yeah, and I appreciate Nick's refocus on what is a value and what is a goal. And now I'm seeing this list in a whole different way.
Yeah, I write vision statements a lot, and it's really important to try not to get into the things that you like and just stay at the level of what you're trying to achieve.
Good point.
So really, we've got these last 3 or these last 5. And if people think that they make sense kind of getting lumped into a category, I guess, speak up, or if you think that they they should stand on their own. I don't think we should probably have more than like 5 or 6 values total for the plan. So we may want to try to think about how we can merge some of these together.
We've already got 5.
Yeah. Go, do you mind going? I'm sorry, I keep asking, going back to see what people
Sure.
said. We
And
took
Daniel,
care
I
of
think you've got, when you mull this over, you have artistic license to take all this and come up with something that you feel is more prudent than the corporate discussion we're having. I think that's important to say that.
Do you think that ethical was kind of less ranked because it is included in equitable, in equity? Is there some, do people feel like the issue of ethics is somehow addressed in other?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we can capture it in, I mean, I think it's captured in equitable, because if something is unethical or something is inequitable, it is inherently unethical.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. If that's
me
just
too.
my.
Yeah.
We took care, and so that leaves well-connected. Did we?
Oh, I just put that on the wrong one. Oh, well. So
Welcoming, family friendly, and fostering community seem to be compatible.
yeah, I agree. Do we want to just capture this all as well?
Well connected. That, yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say.
What's interesting, what's
What were you
particularly
gonna say?
interesting about welcoming, fostering community and family friendly is that those were ones that were specifically related to observations of what people see already in these neighborhoods. So, I mean, where, you know, where
We
obviously.
want to protect that.
Exactly, right. It's harder to identify. Everybody wants it to be ethical. We don't necessarily know if these neighborhoods are ethical or not right now. I mean, we'd all have a different, you know, I mean, that's not the point. The point is that it's interesting that we already see something welcoming, something related to fostering community, and something already family friendly. And that was a commonality between those three that I didn't see necessarily among some of the other ones.
That's the charm of Oak Cliff.
So I'm wondering if I can see how you could say welcoming, well-connected, and family friendly. And I would hope that that fosters community.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, like, shouldn't fostering community be the result of a welcoming, well-connected, and family-friendly place?
Yes.
That's how I would see it.
I agree. Daniel, I just, how important is well-connected to you? Just
Oh, I
asking.
mean, I don't care if it's in there. I don't have
Take it off.
Yeah, it's a good point. I don't know if this gets you anywhere, Daniel, but the only element that seems to be missing, if that were a recipe for fostering community, probably the only thing that's missing from that is some sort of element of resiliency, or in the word legacy, something that carries on. Whereas there's a lot of places that are both welcoming and friendly and have a sense of community, but there's a high turnover. They can have all those things, but it doesn't sit with the same amount of people for very long.
Right.
You know?
But I think because we talk about, you know, being diverse and inclusive and enriching, I think we're covering, I don't know, the way, because when I was hearing you, what I was hearing is, what I heard in my head was, a place can be welcoming and family friendly and foster community, but only for a certain segment of a community. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, it's fragile.
Mm-hmm.
It needs
I think,
resiliency.
well, and I think that, yeah, it does. And I think that, but I think the good thing is that we've covered some of the other things, like equity, like cultural legacy, like, anyway, I just think that even if we left it like that, we've addressed some of the concerns that, or for myself.
I agree. It's that other end of the pendulum that I think we've been able to identify.
So for the sake of time, because we spent a lot of time on this, we still have more to do. Is it okay if I kind of leave it at this? And I might take a stab at just playing with this and sharing it back around with the, with everybody. And if people have big oppositions to how it gets worded, we'll go from there. But I mean, we'll try to keep all of these that we have right here in some sort of fashion.
Yeah, just the last thing is I don't feel like opportunities ranked that high, but I don't remember.
Yeah, it was 4. So, and some of these are kind of, if you've successfully achieved all these values, you should be creating opportunity, you should be fostering community. And so it's hard to tease apart what's the result and what's the value getting you there. And so thanks everybody for helping and chiming in. Okay, so I'll keep us. Is that okay?
I'm so
Sorry. Go
sorry.
ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think we could combine the last 2. If anybody else.
These 2?
Oh, yeah.
I think.
I agree.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So next, looking at the vision statement, I'll go back to full screen on this one. Next, going to the vision statement, we obviously got a ton of feedback from the community via the public meetings on what they wanted. And then with the last task force meeting, y'all chimed in. And so this is what y'all had said there, which was diverse in all senses, a neighborhood rich in culture, cultural and historic significance. West Oak Cliff is a diverse collection of peoples, cultures, and communities whose unique history work together to create a special place in Dallas.
Yes,
safer and inclusive, more walkable, people-oriented, family relations, social interactions, multi-generational households, diverse housing stock at multiple price points, rich in art and performing arts, resilient and well-established area, well-known for being neighborhood of single-family homes where people know each other. So that's what y'all said last time.
Yep.
And then what I got over the last couple of days from folks was start small, build ethically. West Oak Cliff is a collection of unique and diverse neighborhoods bound by the shared beliefs that our streets should be friendly and safe, that we should celebrate our rich history and distinct cultures, and that affordable and accessible living spaces are necessary to create an inclusive community. Inclusive, not intrusive. Our great strength is our diversity and the relaxed way we should just expect to take pleasure in this diversity. Safe, not stifling. Expect that there are some true cultural norms to safeguard our children, property, and citizens as we enjoy the neighborhoods and encouraging cultural expressions. Green, natural. I'm hoping to see more wild green spaces with easy access. Multifamily housing should be smaller footprint on the neighborhood, maybe a 3-story limit. Remain primarily single family. Protect this area from displacement. Affordable housing is essential. The essential part is protecting and keeping affordable single family neighborhoods. West Oak Cliff is a landscape that is diverse, beautiful, eclectic, and historic. West Oak Cliff needs affordable homes, improved sidewalks and streets, clean, safe, DART rail stations and parking, a network of organized community or organized neighborhoods, and then zoning that maintains size and placement of homes. So that's a lot, obviously. And I took a stab at just trying to come up with a starting point that then we could add and tweak based off what people had sent me, based off what the community had said, because I didn't want to lose everything that the community had said either, because obviously we got tons of really good feedback from them as well. So here's what I had crafted this afternoon, and I'll read it and we can talk through it and try to, tease it apart. West Oak Cliff is a safe, diverse, welcoming, and enriching neighborhood that celebrates its people, its history, and its culture. Residents and stakeholders in West Oak Cliff envision a neighborhood that improves quality of life by ensuring housing and retail affordability for its residents, preserves its unique single-family neighborhoods, protects and enhances existing natural amenities and assets, creates new opportunities for parks and recreation, provides a safe environment for pedestrians and cyclists, celebrates its historic buildings, and provides walkable destinations for its residents. West Oak Cliff is a sustainable neighborhood that supports local minority, woman, and immigrant-owned local businesses, promotes local artists and public art, provides human-focused development, and has access to critical community resources.
That's good.
So we can wordsmith it if people have thoughts or don't like something or really want something added, but this is roughly about how long it should be.
Daniel, how many responses did you get? Did you get responses from every member of the committee?
I did not know. I think I received responses from 7 or 8. So about half. But that was just via email. So, you know, I know some folks had chimed in at the last meeting as well.
I like what you've written.
I do. I wanted to share, I guess, something that came to that I wrote in about affordability. And again, I don't know if this is the place for it, but affordability based on like income of people, not just like this national scale of affordability or this regional scale, but what affordability means in West Oak Cliff. So I just want to mention that. I don't know where it goes. But I think when we say affordable, and also when we say affordable housing, well, we didn't, yeah, I was going to say, I think when we talk about affordable housing, what I've heard is we're looking for affordable homes. So when you say affordable housing, that could mean apartments, but I already feel like we're about to max out on apartments, in my opinion. So, you know, I just think that when we talk about affordability, what I've heard from community is they're talking about affordable homes, affordable single family homes, and affordable as it's defined in West Oak Cliff currently. So I wanted to share that. And then
No, definitely. And I'm realizing that affordability is not captured in this. And so I think that working it in some way.
Yeah, I see housing and retail affordability.
Oh, okay.
And I guess the other thing is, if you were asking us for a definitive vote tonight, it would be hard for me to vote on it. I hate to, even if that slows us down. I think we need some time. I think we need some time to reflect on it. It's beautiful, Daniel. It is beautifully written.
Okay. So happy to take other comments. And what I can do is I'll obviously share this around with everybody, and people can, you know, submit their ideas and thoughts of how that, you know, what they might want to add or subtract or whatever, you know, via email to me afterwards. And then maybe at the next meeting, I can just try to present back kind of what everybody has said.
One thing, since so many people voted on the equitable aspect, is maybe changing out the diverse word for equitable.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Do you need us to vote on this?
No. I mean, this is a starting point. I'll share this around, and, you know, I know this is a little bit longer for people to mull over. So why don't I share this around with everybody after, you know, you'll probably get an email tomorrow. And if you've got thoughts on it, send them my way, and I'll try to figure out a way to incorporate everybody's comments in. And if you think it looks good, then we'll just, you know, then don't say anything. But
yeah. And I like affordable housing. I don't like the common interpretation of it and the national, you know, thrust of strategies related to it. But I think it's ubiquitous. It handles, you know, something related just to figuring out residential solutions, basically, within the word housing. So, you know, I think it doesn't need to be anything less than what affordable means to West Oak Cliff, but it can be also so much more, in that West Oak Cliff is also not affordable for a lot of people. So you know, I think that there's still room within that term
Mhm.
to get what Yolanda wants.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that actually kind of segues to the last half of our presentation. And I'll try to go fast because I know we spent a lot of time on all of this, which is really important. Because essentially we're kind of writing the preamble of the plan right here. So
I would also say, I know we talk about providing a safe environment for pedestrians and cyclists, but I don't think that that's the extent of what we mean when we say safe.
okay.
No, not at all.
Human scaled.
Well, what about just a safe, maybe just a safe environment for residents?
We also have safe as literally the first descriptive word in the first paragraph. West Oak
That's a good
Cliff is
point.
safe.
Well,
That was my thought, and then I realized that safe was also in the first paragraph.
Okay.
Right. You could just say hospitable, hospitable to pedestrians and cyclists.
Okay, I'm just gonna write all this as notes.
Hospital.
Let's say.
Get no argument that traffic is an issue and speed.
And Daniel, at some point, it sounds like maybe you can give us all an education on the link between affordability and density, if there is one, and what it means. I mean, we all live in Dallas, and Dallas has a certain cost of living, and it's not becoming any more affordable. And we want to avoid the rise in cost of living, but does that require density or not? And then we can vision some more from there.
Sure. Yeah. And that actually, again, all this kind of segues perfectly to our next section, which is talking about all the tools that the city has to promote affordability. Because I know that that's something that y'all and the residents in the neighborhood keep bringing up. So if everybody doesn't mind, I'll go ahead and kind of move us that direction, and we can continue to work on this vision statement as needed moving forward. We'll touch on it at the next task force meeting as well. So what we've heard from the community as well as folks on the task force is, the concerns about gentrification and displacement are obviously at the top of the list, and things that people want addressed in this plan, and just general concerns that the community has. I mean, just yesterday, The Guardian actually had a big article about displacement and gentrification in the Bishop Arts District area. Really talking about Oak Cliff as a whole, but it was focusing on the Bishop Arts area. This is obviously a huge concern for West Oak Cliff as well as other areas in the city. And so this presentation that I'm about to go through is kind of a starting point of what we as a city hope to be able to turn into something that we can take more broadly out to the community. And so this is kind of a first stab. So we'll refine it, but it's just really a way to hopefully educate y'all as a task force on the different policies that the city has to help preserve affordability and prevent displacement, so that y'all can work with your neighborhood groups and think about, well, maybe one of these strategies makes sense, or maybe it's just something you didn't know existed. So gentrification, I think it's important to kind of start with definitions, because I think sometimes people hear gentrification but don't really know what it means. Gentrification is a process of neighborhood change where higher income and higher educated residents move into historically marginalized neighborhood, housing costs rise, and the neighborhood is physically transformed through new higher end construction and building upgrades, resulting in the displacement of vulnerable residents and changes to the neighborhood's cultural character. Displacement kind of has three different buckets of types of displacement. So there's direct displacement, which is when residents can no longer afford to remain in their homes due to rising housing costs. Residents may be forced out of lease by lease non-renewals, evictions, eminent domain, or physical conditions that render homes uninhabitable as investors await redevelopment opportunities. Indirect displacement refers to changes in who is moving into a neighborhood as low-income residents move out. In a gentrified neighborhood, homes are vacated by low-income residents while Other low income residents cannot afford to move in because rents and sales prices have increased, which that alone is known as exclusionary displacement. Residents can also be excluded as a result of discriminatory policies and changes in land use or zoning that foster a change in the character of residential development, such as eliminating units for households without children. So an example of that would be tearing down single family homes to build an apartment building that only had studios. And then cultural displacement occurs as the scale of residential change advances. Shops and services shift to focus on new residents. The character of the neighborhood is transformed, and the remaining residents may feel a sense of dislocation despite remaining in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
So there's really 4 kind of overarching buckets on how to mitigate residential displacement. And I pulled this from a policy think tank that focuses exclusively on affordable housing. And those are 1, preserve and create dedicated affordable units. So that would be physically building new mixed income communities, mixed income apartment buildings, or single family homes or townhomes or whatever it is. And then preserving would be to work to keep certain units that are already in an area at affordable rates. And, there's various ways to do that. The second is reducing barriers to new supply. So that would be making it easier for a person to build housing. 1, to just increase new supply in general. And 2, let's say an example might be, let's say a developer wanted to build affordable housing, making it easier for them to build affordable housing than market rate housing. So they kind of get in an expedited process, something like that. Just eliminating city hall red tape. Third is to help households access and afford private market homes. Displacement occurs more slowly to neighborhoods that are, to homeowners than to renters, since especially in Texas, we don't have rent control or rent protections. So your rent could double at the time you go to renew your lease, versus if you're paying your property taxes. Yes, your property taxes can obviously increase, but it happens at a slower rate. So if you have a larger home ownership population, it slows the rate of displacement. It doesn't stop it, it just slows it. And then 4th is protections against displacement and poor housing conditions should be established. So that's essentially having a safety net of policies to protect people who are in an area, to make sure that displacement is minimized. I should caveat all of this with Texas is a really challenging state. Obviously our legislature has not made things easy on us, and we're not allowed to require inclusionary zoning. We're the only state in America that has it banned as such. And so an example is, in San Francisco, if you build anything more than 4 units, you have to ensure that a certain percentage are affordable. Texas is not allowed to do that. We're not allowed to enforce rent protections and rent control and things like that. So that obviously serves as an additional challenge for Dallas as a city to overcome. So here are the 17 tools and policies that the city of Dallas has. I'm going to go through most of them, and I'm going to try to be quick because I know it's been a long meeting. Some of them are zoning tools, some of them are economic development tools, and then some of them are tools from the housing department. So let's start with the zoning tools, and after each kind of bucket of tools, I'll take a pause and I'm happy to answer questions. So the first 2 are neighborhood stabilizations, overlays, and conservation districts. Both of these occur obviously at the district scale, and they're intended for single family neighborhoods. Neighborhood stabilization overlays, they're not intended to have an impact on affordability per se, but what they are intended to do is to control the scale and height of a building, so that, let's say a neighborhood was interested in implementing a neighborhood stabilization overlay, and they wanted all the buildings to be 1 story and, have certain setbacks or only take up so much lot, so that you're keeping homes small. That by default means that, your new 5,000 square foot McMansion can't get plopped down next door. And what we know is that as new product is built in a neighborhood that's gentrifying, it inherently raises the tax valuation of its neighbors. And so this essentially slows tax rate increase. It doesn't eliminate it, it just slows it to a degree. These overlays are infinite, so they once they're implemented, it is a program, so you have to like maintain it as a neighborhood, but it can be there forever. But there are some challenges with them, but there are some examples around town. And then there's some examples of, like La Bajada in West Dallas is one that was implemented and the neighborhood didn't keep it active. And so I don't really know what the implications of that are. So there is a process to keeping it active. So that's one tool. Conservation districts, North Cliff in West Oak Cliff actually is an example of one. They are done to preserve a neighborhood's character by protecting and enhancing the attributes of the buildings that are there. They are also not intended to control affordability, but to preserve housing stock the way it is. This is an area that maybe has some historic significance. All the homes kind of have a certain character. This is kind of a historic district light. So what this also does is prevents a McMansion from getting plopped down in an area that's a bunch of old craftsman bungalows. And then, so that by default can help slow, but not stop tax value increase. And there's a lot of examples of these in the Oak Cliff area, including North Cliff. Yeah, go ahead, Paul. I think.
Sorry, I wanted to interrupt there just because the conservation district, just to clarify, while there are examples in Oak Cliff, I think it's important to note on that one, a lot of the most expensive homes, particularly in Old East Dallas, all of those are conservation districts. And essentially most of your new builds fit along with the old style, but they max out and they're around $1 million or so, plus or minus a couple $100,000. And if they're the existing housing stock, a little two bed, 1,300 square feet, they range between $495 and $600, $700. So I just want people to keep that in mind in terms of the affordability limitations of a conservation district.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And again, these are not intended to control affordability. They're intended to preserve character. And that can only do so much, obviously. And especially once the market goes, in the market, the valuation, the price per square foot of a home rises that dramatically. Architecturally, yeah, you can design anything to fit into the neighborhood. And check the boxes from a conservation district perspective, and it can still be extremely unaffordable. So that's a really good point.
But it also happens when your historic stock of houses starts depleting due to, construction in other areas. So then even if it was intended originally, just by the fact that you've galvanized yourself as having a higher stock of historic looking homes, then you innately will become more popular in a growing developing city.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You don't often get to control it.
So the two other zoning tools that we have are the accessory dwelling unit overlay and the mixed income housing bonus. So I'm going to call it the ADU, accessory dwelling unit overlay. That's also at the district scale. The intent of this program is to create a secondary rentable unit on the property of a single family home. These are often known as like granny flats or, in-law suites or something like that. What this really does is it increases supply. So in an area where you've got demand, if you're able to add supply, typically at a lower price point, this does, help mitigate some of that demand. So it's, these are typically not for families. These are typically one bedroom units leased out to a 20-year-old that's interested in staying in an area, or maybe living, a multi-generational household. Maybe it's a grandma a grandmother who's living, but wants her own unit. That's kind of typically how we see these. Some conservation districts in Dallas allow these by right, but in general, these are not allowed. Now, it's on the books that you can have this overlay, but it requires you to opt in instead of opting out. And so it requires a petition process. It's essentially a zoning change. And we've just never had an area of the city do it. But that said, we do know that this can help to increase housing supply in a missing middle housing kind of way. So you're creating a product type that doesn't exist. You're keeping the neighborhood character because you're essentially just keeping the single family homes as is and putting, a one room house in the backyard. Parking is off street. It's required off street. So it doesn't increase parking on the street. So this is just a tool to create supply, which helps to mitigate affordability to a degree as well. The last zoning tool is mixed income housing bonus. These are intended for multifamily properties. This is only at an individual property scale. So essentially, the way that this is written is that if a multifamily district, either MF1, 2, or 3, or MU1, 2, or 3, if they are interested, if a developer is interested in adding density, this essentially says, we'll give you another floor to your building or X number of more units to your building, but you've got to set aside a certain percentage of your units to be affordable. And the way that actually works is that a lot of times developers, some of our codes are old. And so like MF2 is a good example. It's zoned to 36 feet. You can't build a 3-story apartment building anymore at 36 feet just because the way architecture's changed. So it becomes really challenging for a developer to ever build anything on that. But if you allow people to add an additional floor or add more units, it makes them easier for them to develop a project that is actually, profitable. And so, and they're willing to absorb the cost of holding a certain number of units affordable because it still helps them that dramatically. We have seen this applied on planned development districts and on some of our MF and MU districts since this was implemented in 2019. So we have seen some success with this. And this holds units as affordable for 20 years. We've got 2 economic development tools. We've got TIF projects and tax abatements. TIF projects have to occur in a TIF district. West Oak Cliff does not have any TIF districts at this time. But essentially the way that works is a city that's receiving TIF money can actually use TIF funds to help pay tax increment financing funds to help pay for offsetting the cost of providing units to be affordable. That said, if they are receiving money from the city and they are providing rental housing, then 20% of their units must be set aside for 80% area median income for at least 15 years. This is difficult to apply to for sale units, but we've seen a lot of success in implementing this for rental units around the city. The Victor Prosper building in Bishop Arts, the Southside Flats and the Cedars, Trinity Groves, all of those have 20% of their units set aside as affordable units for 15 years. Tax abatements work essentially, a project is seeking tax abatements. They have to go through a formal process with the city. They submit an application. They're usually doing this because they're arguing that we're creating jobs or we're creating an investment, which is increasing tax value in an area. What that does is essentially the city taxes on that property are paused, or there are no taxes on it for a 15-year period. And during that time, the requirement from the city is you'll get your tax abatement, but you have to set aside 20% of your units to be affordable. We haven't seen as many projects like this do it from a multifamily perspective. There's one currently in the works in Uptown, which would have a ground level grocery store and multifamily above. And so that one's going to get us 20% of those multifamily units are going to be affordable. I think it's going to be like 80 units total. So we've seen limited success in this, but this is another set of tools that we have.
What did they define as affordable, Daniel?
So I don't have the specific sliding scale in front of me. Area median income is how they calculate it, and it's based off the Dallas Irving I'm not mistaken, I think it's the Dallas Irving Plano metro area it's a, you know, it's a federal policy. And so federally set, and I don't remember the exact numbers because it changes depending on how many people are in your household. So it's like 56,000 is considered 100% AMI, I think. If it's a 1-person household, that goes up to 72,000 if it's a 2-person household. So I don't remember the specifics, and I can provide that. So it's essentially calculated off of that. So 80% of that translates in effect to, if I'm not mistaken, it's something like $1,100 a month. So like 60% is $800 a month. But I don't have the exact numbers, but I can provide that.
Thank you.
Oh, I was just going to say, to kind of add in, just to give you some reference points, I do remember them a little bit better. So for example, like if it's a family of 4, a couple of Amazon warehouse workers would just barely kind of squeeze by underneath the threshold at 80%. But like 2 teachers starting out at DISD at like the base starting pay would not qualify, right? A household with 1 teacher, if it's just 2 people in there, probably might just scrape by and just be underneath that income limit. If that gives you a kind of a frame of reference of what does 80% look like.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. All right, so the next set of tools, some of the neighborhood empowerment zones is a housing department tool and an economic development tool. We have neighborhood empowerment zones that exist in the city. Those are typically have been done to do things like rehab some old office space, things like that. We've never successfully used it to create affordable units, and it's because there's some challenges to doing that. Essentially, the idea was that if a person invested more than $5,000 into rehabbing their house, that they could then apply for a tax abatement on that property. The problem with it is it requires, the way the policy is written through the state, it requires the person to upfront pay the cost and then retroactively get the tax abatement. At the same time, it also requires, if we were going to double dip and have somebody use some of our other housing funds tools to pay for that, they can't do it until, just the way it's written, it's challenging to get units out of this. And so there's, we're kind of, as a city, still working through how to improve this as an alternative to getting affordable units created. There also are no neighborhood empowerment zones in West Oak Cliff, just to be clear. Land bank program is essentially city lots that are owned by the city's housing department. These are ones that are, they were maybe acquired by the city through foreclosure or code compliance and the home was torn down, other ways like that. And so most of these are vacant lots scattered throughout the city. There are no land bank program lots in West Oak Cliff. A lot of them are in Southern Dallas or in South Dallas Fair Park area. But essentially the way that this works is that the city, sells these to an affordable housing developer at a low rate. And their promise is to deliver units back that are sold at an affordable rate. And that's kind of managed by our housing department. The land transfer program is similar to that, except for it's properties that are owned by other city departments. So maybe it's our public works department had acquired a piece of land for a project. They no longer need it. So then they're able to offload that property to a developer. That developer, is selected, but they're required to maintain units for sale, affordable units at the time of sale. The tool that I think is the one that we don't have in Dallas that is compelling, that many of you may have heard of, is the idea of a community land trust. And so I'm going to do my best to cliff notes this. The way a community land trust works is an area, a set number of lots, a geography of a certain size. The homeowners, the landowners sell their rights to the land, but they continue holding the structure. Or another example would be new homes are built. A nonprofit owns the land, not the improvements on, so the house. So a homeowner would pay nominal rent, like $1 a year on the land, but own the house. And the nonprofit, being a nonprofit, doesn't have to pay taxes on the land. And so essentially what this does is it reduces tax burdens on existing residents or new residents that that buy into the community land trust. The length of this policy is indefinite. The challenge is that you've got to find a nonprofit that is capable of running the community land trust. As I said, we don't have any in Dallas. There's a good example or two in Austin and in Houston. There are some shortcomings to this as well. You know, one is that you're not, you know, the benefit is that you're not having taxes paid. The downside is that as the land increases in value in a neighborhood, a family that owns a house isn't building that wealth on the land value. They're only building wealth, if any, on the improvement value. And so it allows them to remain in their neighborhood, but they're not going to be able to sell the house and make a killing by having bought a house for $100,000 and selling it for $1 million. So, you know, it's a pro and con, obviously. I see some comments in the chat. Okay. Okay. Thanks, everybody. So I'm happy to answer questions on any of the tools I just went through, but before I do that, I'll just highlight a few other tools that the Department of Housing has. We've got a lot of different programs that are related to rehab and improvements, you know, various loans and grants that people can apply for to, you know, repair a roof or other sort of tools like that. There's also the Home Buyer Assistance Program, which I don't remember the exact qualifications. I think it's everybody under 140% AMI, but they can essentially get financial assistance in their first down payment if they're a first-time home buyer. So this is another way to kind of help incentivize and create home ownership in Dallas. So these are tools that I don't have quite as much information on. All the information is at the Housing Department's website. And if you have questions about a specific one, I can provide that to you. But I just wanted to spend a few minutes and talk through all that I just presented, because I know that was kind of quick. And I'm happy to try to answer some questions if people have any.
So first, thank you for presenting all of that. Quite a few programs.
Yeah.
One thing I want to ask though is, so one of the most common things when people look at in terms of like taxes, because Texas is a very high property tax state, you know, when you look at your real mortgage or your payment, you know, about a third of it can be like taxes easily. So can you elaborate a bit on kind of the tax deferrals and the homestead caps, because that plays into some of the other stuff too, like, you know, when we say slowing down the rate of you know, pricing, you know, home price escalations, right? Well, with the homestead cap, that cap basically, just for everyone who doesn't know, homestead caps means that when if your home value increases by more than 10% from the previous year based on DCAD, it still caps the taxable value at no more than a 10% rate of increase, right? So if the actual value jumped 20% or 15% or 100%, they're still capping it at 10%. And then the next year, 10%. So, and that can play into some of these programs because, well, if, you know, you said, okay, you can slow the rate of appreciation from 20% to 12%. Well, you're hitting the cap either way. So at that point, do you really want to actually go for that? You know, it can change your policies. And then there's the senior tax deferrals, which basically seniors don't necessarily have to pay taxes until after they've passed, and they can handle it with the estate. There's also the school, you know, taxes can be frozen as a senior, right? And those are just, you know, free, pretty relatively straightforward programs, right? And also the senior exemptions. So I guess I wanted to see if you could elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah, no, those are all really good to bring up. I mean, I'll be honest, I don't have specific knowledge of those as much. And
yeah, those are all because most of those are managed through the county. And we have done presentations on those, or, you know, have them come present at some of our workshops. But those are definitely county driven, a lot of those things. But I agree, Paul, that those are great tools that definitely people should be more aware of.
Yeah, because one thing we've definitely, you know, noticed is, you know, just even simple things like your homestead exemption, educating the public about that, and, you know, making forms available. And, you know, these are all things that I think the long-term idea behind a presentation, kind of like I just gave you all a draft of, is to be able to take this around to the public and educate people on all of these tools, as well as the different programs you just mentioned, Paul, that are, you know, more state level related and not something that the city of Dallas necessarily directly controls. Some of them they do, but where the county controls, and helping people get signed up for a homestead exemption if they haven't, and all of those things, because we know that, you know, most people might not be aware of these. So
can I add something to that too? I don't know if somebody else has another question, but I just, if you're kind of going thinking to like, okay, this is interesting, but you know, these aren't really hitting what I would hope they would be hitting on. I'm going to make a little pitch for being involved with Forward Dallas, the comprehensive land use update planning process that we're kicking off. So that, because that process will allow us to take a look at some of these things and make recommendations to change some of these things, or to put in more policies that would help support these things and support equity, support affordability. So you guys are so passionate and committed that I want to encourage you to definitely be strong participants in that process, and to help make sure that you liaison that information and that the importance of this opportunity to your association members and to your neighbors. I just wanted that, I think this presentation really drives that, like, okay, we could use some better, stronger, different things. So this is the opportunity, and we haven't done it since 2006. So this is an opportunity that we can't allow to slip by.
Daniel, are you hoping that there's a conversation where we discuss if any of these programs are implemented at the policy level to this plan that we're working on?
sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, you know, I mean, I think that some of this is an education bit, right? Because some of these obviously can't be implemented by a plan, because I mean, the plan could, in theory, make a recommendation to create a TIF district, you know, and have that as a recommendation if that was something that people wanted. You know, that's not something that I think necessarily makes sense. You know, and tax abatements are obviously like an individual property thing. And so that's not something that the plan could really recommend, would be things related to individual properties. But for example, if an area in West Oak Cliff is really interested in learning more about the Community Land Trust program, and, you know, had a community development corporation in mind to work with, then yeah, you know, I mean, if an area is interested in getting involved, you know, the problem with the CLT program was City of Dallas launched it in February of 2020, and then COVID happened. So, you know, getting success was a challenge because it just launched at the wrong time. But we know that there is interest in the city in implementing this. And so really, I think it's more one of those things I wanted, you know, most of these tools are things that the general public just has never seen all in one presentation. And so just kind of wanted to lay it all out there to folks to better understand just what the city has at our disposal to work with. But also maybe if you're reading between the lines here, it's a little bit of a highlight of there's a lot that we don't have to work with. We have a lot of challenges, and you know, to be perfectly clear that like the city can't require units to be affordable because we can't require affordable housing, inclusionary zoning, things like that. But you know, I think understanding this is critical to then thinking about how we come up with a holistic solution in targeted areas of West Oak Cliff to ensure affordability. So that probably means increasing supply, but increasing home ownership, increasing or creating and providing protections for displacement in certain areas. I mean, it's going to require all of that. You're going to have to do all 4 of these buckets of things to achieve success. I don't know if that helped answer the question.
Yeah, brought up a few more.
If you got more, ask them. And if other folks have questions, please chime in.
Well, I mean, it's just as far as like, you know, kind of following due course with this, yeah, I'll reserve kind of my opinions about some of the programs, but would it be possible to get even, you know, experts related to the, to district and neighborhood related programs to come in, and we can line them up either to talk to the task force, or we can line them up to figure out how those become public meetings. Since it's, you know, if the whole point is that we have to get some sort of conciliatory effort to get them adopted into it, we have to kind of talk about it. Certainly this group as well as with the public. And I don't know if necessarily it's how to do that. I don't necessarily like the idea of it just being you know, a fair of programs being pitched, but it would be important to have people that kind of know about how these things fit, and and more specifically, if there's a litmus test to West Oak Cliff related to, you know, some of these. And I have my own opinions on some of them, but that's beside the point for how we engage the public.
Yeah, so, you know, for this meeting, you know, a couple of folks from the housing department just couldn't make it tonight, or else they would have been here to probably better explain and answer some of the specific questions. At a more community oriented meeting, you know, absolutely it would be a representative from housing as well as probably economic development as well, to answer questions and kind of go through these programs. You know, you know, this is kind of it's a challenging bit, right? Because on the land use side, what we really can influence is what is allowed to get built. We can make recommendations on saying, you know, explore creating a community land trust in blah, 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 you know, a certain area or something. You know, it's a separate process from the area plan. The area plan is not going to be like when it gets adopted, it wouldn't be the thing that would directly make that happen. That would require a separate, you know, action and process from city council. But we can make the recommendation of exploring, doing something, or, you know, so again, I know that doesn't maybe directly answer the question. But, you know, I think that I kind of wanted to put this I kind of wanted to frame this around how our work sits into all of this, and, you know, what we can influence and maybe what we can't influence, so that people just understand that a little bit better. But yeah, I mean, I'd like to have this as a more formal presentation. You know, we actually are still working with our assistant city manager on making that possible, you know, so this is, y'all are the first people in the city to ever see this. So, you know, but yeah, I think that's the long-term vision.
I mean, I think, you know, in effort of the four rules of affordability that you were listing there, you know, or strategies are really good. One of the things that I often see in neighborhoods is just the ability for families to adapt and grow, you know, with, you know, while having flexibility to decide whether they want to stay in their house or move to somewhere else. And obviously being able to stay in your house is something that everyone like seriously evaluates. So, you know, multi-generational housing is one of these elements that gets touched on in ADU policy, but I think that if there's a way that we can have a format for discussion, talking about maybe some more nuanced, more creative zoning concessions for people, how they can basically grow in their house, and understand the line of that different from actual multifamily zoning categories that we already have, you know? So,
Yeah.
you know,
And that relates to the Forward Dallas plan, because I know that that's, you know, this is a topic we've heard across the city. So obviously it's an issue in West Oak Cliff, but it's an issue everywhere. But, you know, I definitely think that there's an opportunity for the plan to lay out a framework for what, you know, what alternative missing middle housing options might exist out there, and how does it fit into a neighborhood without changing the neighborhood or changing the character of the neighborhood. Yolanda, I see you have a question about giving us an update on the community workshop process. Are you talking about the education workshops that we have ongoing this month?
Yeah, I know you
Yeah,
sent me an email, but
yeah,
when-
I
when
was
we
gonna
get
get, I mean, that's on my next slide. So I know it's getting late, so I'll keep us moving unless folks have any more questions about all these tools and policies that the city has.
Hey, Daniel, can you let me out of the waiting room?
Oh, nah, that might have to be Mike. I'm not a host.
Cool. Thank you.
Sure, sorry about that.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's done now. Yeah.
Daniel, I know
I
there's
think it was
been, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I just want to say thank you. It's a great presentation that gives us that framework for what's available, and I think that's what is going to help to educate our communities, and like you said, find the gaps. So
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's gonna take creativity and putting all the puzzle pieces together. It's not just one panacea that can do it. So
Yeah, and Daniel, to your point, I would be interested to know what are things that other cities have done that we don't have in our toolbox here. I'm also curious. I know Fair Park has been struggling for years with maintaining affordability of their single family homes. And I believe this year or last year, there was some sort of tax freeze for single families, or a one-time move available to them without increasing the tax value of their homes. Do you know what that was, or does anybody on this call, are they familiar with that?
I don't specifically. If there is
Maybe-
anybody on the call who does speak up.
Maybe it was a deal with the county as well. I don't know, but I know that this was addressed for Fair Park recently with all the new development that's planned around there.
Yeah. Yeah, and in terms of your question about other cities, well, obviously we're not alone, right? I mean, every city is facing this. Housing supply in general as a nation is just not keeping up with growth of population. It's a pretty basic economics 101, result. But, I can't name a single city that is doing a really good job at doing this. I can name cities that have done some innovative things on one or two types of programs. Like I think Austin, Houston, and Atlanta have done some stuff with community land trust that seems to be working. But again, it's really limited scale. It might just be a single neighborhood that implemented it. Getting it on a much larger scale does become more of a challenge. I know that, larger cities like San Francisco and Seattle and stuff, they obviously have massive affordability issues, but at the same time, they do have units required to be set aside to be affordable in new development. So they do create more affordable units than the city of Dallas does, but it usually means that the cost for the other units gets passed on. So you might have some units at $1,000 a month, and then all the other units are $4,000 a month. So that doesn't really help the problem either. So yeah, I mean, this is just a universal problem that cities, planners nationwide are grappling with.
I mean, from my angle, and I apologize if this isn't super profitable to the group, but I find that it's largely related to construction cost. And so I think that what I look for in working with city staff city staffers is finding ways to reduce barriers that prevent construction costs from being higher than they necessarily need to be compared to, say, another neighborhood, which is not necessarily something that's, easy to do. But it's trying to, just the cost of studs, and especially in working with older houses, then you've got longer construction time. So there's a lot of logistical elements that zoning policies and zoning plans can't really control. But they can give a latitude to really creative people that are willing to work in those areas. And I find that that really centers around what people are doing with rising construction costs.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I mean, construction costs are such a huge part. I mean, I heard not too long ago that it's basically impossible to build a house in the United States for less than $300,000 right now because of the price of lumber. And a $300,000 house probably is more expensive than 100% area median income. A mortgage for that would be more expensive than the average person in Dallas can afford. And so thus, the result is it's impossible to even build housing stock if you're building it to be affordable. So then you're having to essentially have what we call sorting. So the older units become the one that have become cheaper, but it's, enforcing affordability on those is a challenge. So yeah, I mean, it's a problem, but mostly just wanted to present this and get feedback. I know that, sorry, I didn't present any big solutions. Well, for the sake of time, I'm going to keep us moving to the end. I know folks probably want to eat dinner and be with their families. So for next steps, just for the plan, just wanted to give some updates. So we've kind of gotten through this visioning part. Now we're really diving into these workshops that Yolanda had mentioned. So first and foremost, I wanted to highlight these capacity building workshops that my department's hosting. One of them happened on Saturday, but we've got 3 more coming up. So we've got one more that's on land use and zoning basics on September 28th at Martin Weiss Park. And then we've got 2 sessions on how to form a neighborhood association for areas that maybe are have a couple of folks in the community are interested in creating one, but they don't really know what to do. So we've got a session tomorrow night actually at the Dallas Zoo at 6 p.m. I should note that the admission to the zoo is free for folks. And actually the zoo closes at 5. So the zoo will just be open. We're at the Zoo North Pavilion and we'll be there to direct folks. And then October 2nd at 10 a.m. at Martin Weiss Park, which is a Saturday morning. So for everybody who is a neighborhood association representative, it's really important that you let your neighborhood association know about these events. I sent out flyers to everybody, but I'm happy to send it out again if I need to. We sent mailers to every area in West Oak Cliff that isn't covered by a neighborhood association. But obviously due to cost, we could only send out so many. So the areas that do have neighborhood associations, we didn't send mailers to, but we do encourage you to get the word out, however you communicate with your neighborhood associations.
About how many flyers would you say were mailed?
Over 5,000.
Awesome.
Proposed focus areas. So these are the ones that we talked about on our last task force meeting. These are mostly areas that have authorized hearings on them, and then a few other areas next to transit or in areas where the community was interested in just putting a little bit more focus on. So really our next step for the large public meetings for West Oak Cliff is going to be, we got 4 workshops that we just kind of finalized getting booked. And these are on Tuesday, October 12th at 5:30 at Beverly Hills Park. Saturday, October 23rd at 10 a.m. at Keast Park. Monday, October 25th at the Beer Garden at Oak Cliff Brewery. And then Saturday, November 13th at Martin Weiss Park. Just because of COVID and city regulations, all of these are outdoors. They're going to have to be kind of more open house format so that we're not crowding people around tables on maps in front of each other. So we're doing the best we can with COVID. Kind of on a map, it's easier to see it this way. So essentially, we're dividing the study area up into 4 areas. The eastern, the middle, the north, and the south. It's just real simply, we'll call it that way, or the eastern, middle, north, and west. So the areas that are in yellow, those focus areas, at those specific meetings, we'll only focus on those focus areas. So if you came out on Monday to Oak Cliff Brewery, we'll only talk about the Tyler Vernon station in downtown Elmwood. Just because, you know, we really want to have a deep dive into those specific areas. So I'll be sure to, you know, and we'll be able to capture comments of people who are like, I couldn't go to West Davis corridor meeting, but here's my thoughts on what happens there. And we also have our online social pinpoint tool, which people can provide input that way as well. But this is, you know, the idea is that at this point, after we get through these workshops, we'll have had 16 public meetings, and we'll have collected hundreds, thousands, well, probably thousands of comments by this point. And that'll give us a starting point for us to go begin drafting a draft of the plan. The idea then being that, you know, we'll use the holidays to write it and come back to the public in early 2022 and present our first draft and work with the community and the neighborhood associations to get feedback.
How, I like the map with the little 4 thingies, and my question is, how soon will you have that information in a format that we can distribute? And will you include that map because it's helpful? Of course, as a community organizer, I want to make sure that our networks have as much opportunity to let people know, because I think that's really now. And then also make sure that I just want to make sure that we're going to have a format where people can actually hear information and give information, because I think that sometimes when we're just having those kind of wandering conversations, like where we go from panel to panel, people got a little confused, because for some people that was their first interaction on the plan.
Sure.
So
yeah, you know, we've a lot of our energy's been given towards the workshops that are at the zoo, and so I think we'll work on trying to get a flyer out. I mean, we've got all the material made, so we can try to work on something and get something out maybe by the end of the week, so that we can really start promoting these, since obviously the first one is a month away. So it's coming quick. So yeah, we'll work on getting this out as soon as possible.
Okay. Well, we're continuing a couple of community organizations to do block walking. So I want to get the info to them so that if we're going to be block walking, that we can get that info out to folks.
Yeah, absolutely. And we really appreciate that. So that's all I have for tonight. I appreciate everybody staying on late, and I appreciate everybody's input. And I'll follow up in an email tomorrow with the recording to the meeting for folks who couldn't make it. And then with our values and our vision statement, and you know, we'll continue to massage those. But I really do appreciate everybody being on tonight and being part of the conversation. And once again, please, you know, continue to get the word out about our workshops that we have coming up tomorrow, and then later in September and early October.
Very good. I will turn off the recording.